Should corporations be socially responsible? How possible is it to challenge the corporate ethic of our time?
I think it's too simple to say, let's get rid of all corporations and that will solve the problems of the world. There are things that can be done, and only can be done, it seems, when people organize and are, at least in part, motivated by profit.
I believe that there should be strong governmental controls on these corporations in terms of their behavior, in terms of what they can do. People will say, well, no, that's a different kind of government. Well, what kind of government is that other than a democracy? These companies should be more democratic. The whole economy should be more democratic, meaning that you and I have a say in what's going on.
Protesting the power of corporations. The Corporation Part 3, Reckoning. Tonight on The View from Here. Hello, welcome to The View from Here. I'm Ian Brown. So far in Mark Akbar, Jennifer Abbott, and Joe Backen's controversial three-part documentary, The Corporation, we've been told that 15 of the world's largest companies want to control the entire globe. They serve their own ends, using any means possible, to the detriment of many, which is, of course, controversial enough. Tonight, though, in Reckoning, the third episode of The Corporation, the filmmakers suggest how people can resist corporations and break through their imperviousness to democracy. Backen and company have a distinct point of view, of course. They're anti-free trade. But they interview well-known thinkers on both sides of the globalization debate. And both sides seem quite willing to use selective evidence to further their cause. But even that is grist for the mill for the rest of us, trying to make up our minds about how much business can be trusted with the future.
We began this three-part series analyzing the nature and peculiar personality of the modern business corporation. In part 2, we saw the corporation extending its influence into every sphere of life. In this concluding hour, we consider the corporation's history of indifference to democracy and the high-stakes struggle facing grassroots movements as they challenge the dominant institution of our time. The prospect that 2/3 of the world's population will have no access to fresh drinking water by 2025 has provoked the initial confrontations in a worldwide battle for control over the planet's most basic resource. When Bolivia sought to refinance the public water service of its third largest city, the World Bank required that it be privatized, which is how the Bechtel Corporation of San Francisco gained control over all of Cochabamba's water, even that which fell from the sky.
Esta ley, este contrato, prohibían a la gente acumular el agua de la lluvia. Por lo tanto, el agua de la lluvia también se privatizaba. La factura de agua le daba un valor legal a la empresa para que pueda apropiarse de su propiedad, de su vivienda, rematando la misma. La gente debía optar por una decisión de comer menos, pagar del agua, pagar por los servicios básicos, dejar de mandar a los niños a la escuela, no asistir a los hospitales y curarse en la propia casa, o en todo caso, gente jubilada, por ejemplo, que tiene una renta muy baja, debería buscar trabajo en las calles.
Es el gobierno boliviano que ha obedecido, o sea, los mandatos que le ha hecho el Banco Mundial. Pero en última instancia, quienes son los responsables de todo esto son las empresas transnacionales que han ido a intentar lucrar con lo poco que tiene el pueblo cochabambino, han intentado ganar dinero con el poco excedente que pudiera generarse en Cochabamba. Los gobiernos en nuestros países lamentablemente son instrumentos de estas empresas.
Con la consigna de "el agua es nuestra, carajo", la gente sale a las calles, sale a los caminos y protesta, ¿no?
The price this beleaguered country paid for World Bank loans was the privatization of the state oil industry and its airline, railroad, electric, and phone companies. But the government failed to convince Bolivians that water is a commodity like any other.
Entonces, ahí sí vimos que el gobierno defendía los intereses de la transnacional Bechtel, porque la gente quería agua, no gases. La gente quería justicia y no balas.
Transnational corporations have a long and dark history of condoning tyrannical governments. Is it narcissism that compels them to seek their reflection in the regimented structures of fascist regimes?
There was an interesting connection between the rise of fascism in Europe and the consciousness of politically radical people about corporate power, because there was a recognition that fascism rose in Europe with the help of enormous corporations.
Mussolini was greatly admired all across the spectrum. Business loved him. Investment shot up. And suddenly when Hitler came in Germany, the same thing happened there. Investment shot up in Germany. He had the workforce under control. He was getting rid of dangerous left-wing elements. Investment opportunities were improving. There was no problems. These are wonderful countries.
I think one of the greatest untold stories of the 20th century is the collusion between corporations, especially in America, and Nazi Germany. First, in terms of how the corporations from America helped to essentially rebuild Germany and support the early Nazi regime, and then, when the war broke out, figured out a way to keep everything going. So General Motors was able to keep Opel going, Ford was able to keep their thing going, and companies like Coca-Cola, because they couldn't keep the Coca-Cola going, so what they did was they invented Fanta Orange for the Germans. And that's how Coke was able to keep their profits coming in to Coca-Cola. So when you drink Fanta Orange, that's the Nazi drink. That was created so that Coke could continue making money while millions of people died.
When Hitler came to power in 1933, his goal was to dismantle and destroy the Jewish community. This was an enterprise so fast that it required the resources of a computer. But in 1933, there was no computer. What there was the IBM punch card system, which controlled and stored information based upon the holes that were punched in various rows and columns. Naturally, there was no off-the-shelf software as there is today. Each application was custom designed, and an engineer had to personally configure it. It was the IBM machinery and punch card system which enabled the entire extermination by labor program. This is where hundreds of thousands of Jews and other enemies of the Reich were simply worked to death based upon their location, their job skills. They were moved from place to place, and then there was slave labor billing. All of it was done on IBM machines. Now, the concentration camps, it's a very, very special case. Millions of people of all religions and nationalities and characteristics went through the concentration camp system. Hundreds of camps, thousands of sub-camps.